Okay, so as Hashem will continue our discussion about Hishtadlus versus Bitachon and the different madrigas, the different levels of Amuna. But just to begin, I want to address a question that someone emailed me this past week after the last year. The question was raised: how does it work when it comes to Parnasa with someone who is on the level of Elokim? Right? We've been talking about how there's really two different types of levels of Amuna. There's the basic level of Elokim, of a person who believes in the rules, who therefore lives by the rules of Teva, of nature. And the level number two, someone who's beyond that, the tzaddik, who lives in a level of Yudkei Vavkei, who doesn't believe in the rules, and the rules therefore do not bound him. So the question was asked, what's the deal with Parnasa? Meaning, in other words, we all believe that on Rosh Hashanah, Hashem decrees how much money a person is going to get throughout the course of that year. So let's say, for example, a person is decreed that he's going to make $100,000, right? Let's say like that. Now, this person, let's say he's on the level of Elokim, which means that in order to legitimize him receiving that $100,000, physically down here in this world, he has to go through the rules of nature. That's what he believes in, and that's what's going to govern him. Now, let's say this person, either willingly or unwillingly, whatever the case may be, he loses his job, he quits, he gets fired by another person who has free will. Things happen that in order to, which according to the rules, he doesn't seem to deserve that $100,000. So what happens then? How does the decree of Rosh Hashanah, how does that interact with the person's hishtadlus throughout the course of that year? So it's a very, very good question. It's a very important question. There's many different aspects of how to tackle such a question. But I just want to mention one idea, which is something that the Baal Tanya wrote. He writes this in his commentary to Chumash. He writes it in a few places as well. He raises the following question. The Gemara, we all know that there's such a thing as the din of Rosh Hashanah, right? Rosh Hashanah, Hashem judges us for everything that's going to happen that year. At the same time, there's another Gemara, Rosh Hashanah, which tells us Adam nidin b'chol yom, that a person is actually judged every single day. So we have this general judgment on Rosh Hashanah, and then we have a particular judgment of each and every day. So the obvious question Baal Tanya is dealing with is what do we need both, and how do they relate to each other? So Baal Tanya, just very, very quickly, Baal Tanya explained that the judgment of Rosh Hashanah basically is how much spiritual energy, how much light of Hashem, so to speak, is going to be accessible to this person throughout the course of that year. How that reservoir of energy materializes day to day, and in how and in what measure and so on, that's Adam Nidin B'chol Yom, that's a particular judgment each and every day. So for example, let's say a person on Rosh Hashanah is judged that he deserves, again, you can't quantify these things, but let's say, just as ridiculous as this sounds, a person is decreed on Rosh Hashanah that he's deserving 10 gallons of spiritual energy, whatever, again, like I said, there's no measure physically, obviously, to quantify these things, but just for example. So in that reservoir of spiritual energy, of godliness, that's now, accessible to him, his job now throughout the course of that year is to deserve each and every day to connect to that reservoir of energy, and for that reservoir of energy to come down and to materialize in his life as a paycheck, as a refuah, as Yeshua, whatever the shidduch, whatever the case may be. Now, what happens throughout? So says the Baal Tanya, what happens throughout the course of the year? The person is undeserving of gaining access to that reservoir which he earned on Rosh Hashanah. So a person on Rosh Hashanah did tshuva, he's a tzaddik, he deserved a lot of energy to be accessible to him. But, then things happen after, starts to make tshuva, whatever, and he's no longer deserving of that access. So says the Baal Tanya, what happens is that reservoir is held for him in Olam Haba. It's never taken away completely. It's just he might not be allowed to access it right now this year, but it's always there waiting for him to get to that level where he's going to be able to access it in the future. So it'll be the same. I would imagine it would be the same thing when it comes to a parnasa. If a person merits on Rosh Hashanah to be given $100,000, so if throughout the course of that year he does not do the proper shtadlus, and he's a person that needs a shtadlus, he does not do the proper shtadlus to access that $100,000, and that energy in Shemayim, that spiritual energy, which has the potential of turning into $100,000, obviously is not going to materialize that year as $100,000, but it remains up there in potential for other Yeshuas or other things or other years down the line, so everything is eventually going to be used. And again, if a person goes through an entire lifetime without ever tapping into that, then it's safe for him as reward in Olam Haba. So things have to work. And again, this is part of the complexity of the system that Hashem made. On the one hand, there is such a thing as a shtadlus. On the other hand, certain things have to happen. That's just on this side. Now, I just wanted to continue with our discussion of the two inyanim, the two levels of Amunah, and two levels of Bitachon and Shtadlus. So until now we've been discussing, we basically made a dichotomy that we have type A, which is Elokim, a type of person where he's bound by the rules and so on, and type B, which is Yud Kei Vav Kei. I just want to mention, this is what I want to mention right now, is that there is such a thing as a person who's generally speaking living on the level of Elokim, which means he believes in the rules govern him and so on. He's a person that cannot walk through walls and things like that. He's not a Yud Kei Vav Kei type of person. However, the Svarim do tell us that there is such a thing that on occasion, a person even on such a level can attain and can tap into the level of Yud Kei Vav Kei. I'll tell you a classic example. I don't know if it's a classic example. An example of such a thing is that if you remember way back when we first started this whole discussion, the personality that I chose to give as an example to represent the world of Elokim was the Brisker Rav, right? So I mentioned the story that they say that, he was thinking about leaving Eretz Yisrael in 1948 because he said he has a tradition when they shoot, you run. Meaning, listen, you have to go with the rules of the Shtadlus, and according to the rules of the Shtadlus, maybe this is a dangerous place, and because of that, I have to go away from it. And the thing, he didn't leave because of other circumstances, but so that was the person that we used. That same person, Brisker Rav, famously, is a relatively famous story, was actually saved in the Holocaust and on certain occasions during 1948 by tapping into the level of Yud Kei Vav Kei. He's like this. In Nefesh HaChaim, Reb Chaim Volozhner, the great-great-grandfather of the Brisker Rav, writes the following thing. He says that there's a skula, there's no really good English word to translate the word skula, charm, some sort of power. That it says that Reb Chaim Volozhner, he writes this, you can look it up yourself. If you use this skula, then it is guaranteed no harm can come to you. What is this skula? Nefesh HaChaim writes, if a person is in a dangerous situation, a life-threatening situation where there's no natural way to get out of it, you seem to be backed up into a corner, says the Nefesh HaChaim, if a person, even a regular person, who's generally speaking on the level of Elokim, if he meditates on the following words, Ein od milvado, that there is nothing but God, there is nothing but Hashem, then says the Nefesh HaChaim that for those moments when a person is meditating on that reality of Ein od milvado, nothing can harm him. The Nefesh HaChaim writes. And there are stories like this, that the Nefesh HaChaim, Reb Chaim Volozhner himself, had situations where there are particular stories where he was helping out another Jew who was in a terrible situation, and he told him this skula, and he said that even though you're a regular person, but for those moments when your life is in danger, whatever the case may be, meditate on this idea of Ein Milvado, and I guarantee you will be protected. There are stories that the Brisker Rav himself, this is how he survived the Holocaust. There are mitzvahs where he dressed as the Brisker Rav. He didn't shave his beard, he didn't take off any, he looked like the Brisker Rav. Him and his son Rebel were able to drive past and walk past Nazi guards, and miraculously, without the Nazis stopping them or anything. The reason is because Brisker Rav said that him and his son were meditating on Einai Milvado, there is nothing but God, and at those moments, he was living on the level of Yud Kei Vav Kei, and when a person lives on that level of Yud Kei Vav Kei, even for a moment, no harm can come to him. The rules are suspended for him. There's a ma'isa that he himself was traveling in a car. He was in the back seat of a car with his son. They had to get through Nazi guards on their way to. They traveled across Europe to eventually get to Israel. So at some point they had to go through a checkpoint by the Nazis. And the Brisker Rav was in the back seat, focusing on Ein Milvado. The Nazi guard put his head in the car window, looked directly at them, and let them go. As the car went further on, a block away, whatever, something happened that distracted Brisker Rav's meditation, and he lost concentration on Ein Milvado. And then automatically, right then and there, the Nazi guard waved the car back, and the car had to come back. And then when the car was, in reverse, the Brisker Rav concentrated again, and the Nazi again stuck his head in the window, looked at Brisker Rav, and let them go. There's another ma'isa, it's a quick thing, it's a cute ma'isa. Even during 1948, the story goes, I'll say very, very quickly, the story goes that The bombs were falling all over the place. The Yerushalayim was very, very dangerous. So all the Jews that were in Yerushalayim were running to bomb shelters. Briskerov refused to go to bomb shelter. He's sitting on his couch learning Gemara. He's not going anywhere. He's not interested. So his son Rebel is very nervous for his father's safety. And he knows that there's only one person in all of Yerushalayim that his father would listen to. That's Rav Zalman Meltzer. So the Rebel, Briskerov's son, risks his life crawling, throughout, running the streets of Yerushalayim, getting to Rav Zalman, tells Rav Zalman what's going on with his father. So Rav Zalman takes out a piece of paper, writes on it, with all due respect, as the Rosh Hashiva, as the Rav of Yerushalayim, I command you to go to a bomb shelter. So Rebel takes this piece of paper back to his father, shows it to his father, and so it's like, you told on me. So one of my soldiers, Rav Zalman, says, I have to go. So he closes his Gemara, gets up from the couch, walks to the door, and as they're about to leave the room, a bomb breaks through the roof, lands right on the place of the couch where Briskerov's head was, and doesn't explode. So Rebel says to his father, I'm a miracle worker. Look what I did. If it wasn't for me, you would have been on that couch. So Briskerov said, a miracle worker, you owe me a new couch. He said, while I was sitting on that couch and I was learning, I was meditating on Eina Milvado, and nothing would have happened. Nothing could have happened. You got this letter. You made me close my Gemara. You made me get up. It messed up my concentration, and that's why the bomb came and broke my couch. And the whole time, down to the bomb shelter, he's telling his son that after the war's over, you go into the store, you get me a couch. You have to the same type of couch. You have to break it in. The whole thing. There is such a concept that you can have an average person who, on occasion, taps into the level of Yud Kei Vav Kei. More so, there is such a concept, and this is specifically found in the Chassidish Swarm. There is a concept that not only can an average person on occasion tap into Yud Kei Vav Kei, that level, by, let's say, meditation on Eina Milvado and so on. In the Chassidish Swarm, we find the concept that even by associating to a tzaddik, a person, there is such a thing that the level of the tzaddik, by osmosis, will transfer over onto this average person. Now, it won't necessarily, unless the person is really working on himself, it won't necessarily change him through and through, but at least at the time when he's connected to the tzaddik, either physically, by literally being associated and next to the tzaddik, or mentally, by thinking about the tzaddik and by connecting to the tzaddik in his own personal life, there is such a thing that the light of that tzaddik can somehow lift the person up. We have many stories like this, again, in the Chassidish world, where you have Gaboyim, who are not necessarily the most unbelievable tzaddikim, but because of their association with big tzaddikim, crazy things happen to them. I mean, there's many stories like this. There's one famous one with it's called the Munkacher passport. There's many stories like this, where just by associating oneself to a tzaddik, miraculous things can happen to you. Now again, that doesn't mean that the person is really changed. It doesn't mean that the person is truly any better. There's another story. There's a story again. Once we were saying stories already, there's a nice they say with the Baal Shem Tov that the Baal Shem Tov used to travel from place to place with a certain, with his horse and with a certain carriage of horses, and they would go miraculously with Kvisas Hadar from one corner of Europe to the other like nothing, and the carriage would be flying in the air. This is what they say. So the story goes that as one time was happening, that the horses of the Baal Shem Tov and the Baal Shem Tov on the carriage were flying through the air and across Europe. So one horse said to the other, "No, I think we're angels. I don't think we're horses. I think we're angels. Look at us. What horses fly in the air? We must be angels." The other horse says, "Okay, I guess you're probably right." So after they land in whatever place it was, the Baal Shem Tov ties them up to the barn over there, whatever, and there's a big trough of food. And immediately when the horses see the trough, Baal Shem Tov walks away. They stick their faces deep into the garbage food over there. And then the horse looks to each other and they say, "You know what? We're taco horses. We're taco horses." So there's such a thing that by a person there can be such a thing as well, that by association to a tzaddik, the person is uplifted temporarily. Not necessarily is there an internal change that's taking place, but by associating to a tzaddik, there is something about it that the person is uplifted. This is one of the major inyanim, why we find in Chassidus a concept of connecting to a tzaddik. Because even if a person isn't maybe on the level of becoming a tzaddik himself, but by associating to a tzaddik, that itself, at least superficially, which is something that's already something, that person is uplifted. So again, just to clarify, so we have Elokim, but nevertheless, a person who's on the level of Elokim can raise himself to the level of Yud Kei Vav Kei either on occasion or by associating himself with someone who's on the level of Yud Kei Vav Kei. This is why we find that again, the greater the tzaddikim, there's a famous statement from Menachem Breslover. He used to say that people think that if you're to be a car to help a very very low Jew, all you have to be is just a little bit higher than him, right? To teach someone that doesn't know anything, all you have to know is a little bit, and then you can teach him something. It's harder, said Rabbi Nachman. That's what people think. It's harder to teach. It's harder to teach bigger people. The lower the person is, it's easy to take care of him. Rabbi Nachman said it's not like that. He said the sicker the person, the greater doctor you need. And the reason is because the lower the person is on his level of emunah and bitachon, then the greater tzaddik he might need to associate himself to raise him up. Right? If a person is on a very, very low level, then for him to become uplifted through an association of someone else, he might need a very, very big tzaddik to be associated to. This is a concept, again, this is what we find in Chassidus, it's a concept, a very, very strong concept of connecting to a tzaddik. And this is something, by the way, it's an important thing to remember. The Storm tell us, or Menachem talks about this a lot in Likutei Moharan, that even if a person isn't able to physically associate himself with a tzaddik, for whatever the case may be, he's unable physically to connect to someone that's a tzaddik, his Rebbe, whatever the case may be, but mentally, says Menachem, by thinking about the tzaddik, by caring about the tzaddik, by being interested in what the tzaddik says, learning his farm and so on, that itself has a very powerful way of connecting you to the tzaddik and uplifting you through that tzaddik. So there's that concept. Okay, so the next few minutes I want to discuss. Let's take the discussion a step further. So until now, it would seem that a person who is stuck on the love of Elokim it's Nebuch, it's Rahmanis. Unfortunately, he believes in the rules. He's on a low level of Emunah and Bitachon, and because of that, he has no choice but to suffer the consequences of the rules of nature. However, it would seem that that's a b'diavad. That's not the way a Jew is supposed to be. It's not really what Hashem wants. What Hashem really wants are tzaddikim on the level of Yud Kei Vav. And there's no question, there's truth to that. Hashem wants us to raise our Emunah without a question. However, there is one point I want to make, and I think this is a very, very important point. There's a teaching, there's a famous statement, we know this from Chazal. The pasuk says, "Vayeshev Yaakov be'eretz Megurei Aviv be'eretz Canaan." The Chazal tell us that Yaakov Avinu, after his whole episode with Esav and all the difficulties that came along with his struggles of finding a shidduch and raising a family and so on, so Chazal tells, "Bikesh Yaakov leishev b'shalva." That Yaakov wanted to sit in peace. He wanted to be sitting in peace. So Hashem responded to him, you tzaddikim, it's not enough for you to have menucha, to have peace in the next world. You want to have peace in this world. Miyad kaf sal of ragza shel Yosef. So immediately the whole suffering, the whole episode of Yosef Tzaddik came upon him. So what does that mean? What was Yaakov Avinu looking for? What peace? What was the peace that Yaakov was looking for? He's looking for, just to relax, to sit in a hammock with a beer and to watch the football game. What's the peace that Yaakov Avinu was looking for? So it's a very, very important teaching from the Ishvitzer. The Ishvitzer writes on that parasha Vayeshev, writes the following thing. He says the peace that Yaakov Avinu was looking for was the peace of living a life without having any doubts. Without having any doubts. What does that mean, doubt? Yaakov Avinu didn't have doubts about Hashem. He didn't have doubts about the truth of Torah. What were the doubts that Yaakov Avinu wanted to avoid? Says the Ishvitzer, the doubts of Yaakov Avinu that he was trying to run away from was the doubts that plague a person who's stuck in the world of Elokim. How much work should I put in today? How much effort should I put in Ishtadlos? Am I doing the right thing? Am I working at the right job? Am I not doing the right thing? Is this really what Hashem wants? Maybe Hashem wants me that I should quit my job and sit and learn. Maybe Hashem wants me to take a different job. Does Hashem want me right now to cut my learning short in order to help out another Jew right now or not? All these doubts that plague a person. Yaakov Avinu wanted to raise himself up to the level of Yud Kei Vav completely, to get out of the world of doubt, to get out of this uncertainty of Elokim, which there's no question that a person who is on the level of Elokim, who's stuck in this world, is plagued by doubt, each one in his level. Obviously, we have much more doubts than a Yaakov Avinu, but Yaakov in his level wanted to get rid of doubts. And that's what it means, the peace that Yaakov Avinu was looking for. So Hashem responds to him that that's not the way that's not the world that Hashem wants. Tzaddikim, you'll have menucha in the next world, but in this world, Hashem Dafka wants a person to deal with doubts and to overcome it. Now, overcoming doubt does not mean necessarily to have the answer, because sometimes there is no clear answer. After the whole discussion we've been talking about, so if someone were to ask me, so practically, Yossi? Am I supposed to work, 11 hours a day in order to make a parnasa, or should I cut my job down to 8 hours a day and spend the rest of the time? There's no way for me to answer that, and sometimes there's no way even for anyone to answer that to an individual person. There's no question that as a person is living a level of Elokim, you're plagued constantly with doubt. And that's the reality. But what Hashem was telling Yaakov Avinu is that's exactly what Hashem wants sometimes. Sometimes Hashem wants us to live in a world of doubt, which seems to be the arena of Amalek, right? Amalek numerically equals the word doubt. That's where Amalek thrives, in the world of doubt. Hashem sometimes wants us to be in that place and to struggle and to do the best we can. The Indian of when Chazal then said that because of this whole discussion, Miyad Kafsa of Rogza Shel Yosef, the issue of Yosef HaTzadik came upon Yaakov Avinu, the whole debate, this is something that, I can't go into at great length over here, just for a minute though. The whole issue of Yosef and Yehuda, the whole conflict between Yosef and Yehuda was the conflict between these two worlds. Yosef was Yosef HaTzadik. Yosef is a straight person. Yosef is someone who's interested in the peace that Yaakov Avinu was looking for. Yeah, Yosef HaTzadik is someone that never wants to veer off into any area that's even remotely sketchy. Yehuda, on the other hand, is not like that at all. Yehuda thrives in the world of doubt. Yehuda's with Tamar, David and Bathsheba, craziness. Strange things happen in the world of Yehuda. And nevertheless, all the craziness and all the doubt that plague a Yehuda personality, nevertheless, he's able to survive it and thrive in it and come close to Hashem despite all the doubts and despite not having the answers. This was the conflict between Yosef and Yehuda, and this came out, this emerged when Yaakov Avinu was himself struggling with this inner turmoil of whether he should, accept a world of doubt or try to somehow escape it. So when Yaakov Avinu was having this inner turmoil, it manifested itself literally in his children having this outward fight of Yosef and Yehuda struggling between these two worlds. This is an important point that the Ishmael is making, that when someone is on a level of Elokim, it's not a b'diavad necessarily. It's not a b'diavad. Hashem wants people, and He wants specific neshamas to deal with doubt, to deal with not having the answers in life always, to struggle to know, am I doing the right thing, am I not doing the right thing, and do the best you can. And that's something that Hashem wants. Hashem wants us to take doubt, and not necessarily to have the answers, but to overcome it. To overcome doubt means to accept the doubt, to accept the unknown, to accept the ambiguousness of life, and to still go further. And to still just close your eyes and say, listen, what am I supposed to do? This is what Hashem wants me. I'm going to do the best I can. And that's something that Hashem wants. That's an avodah that Hashem wants. That's called the avodah of Yehuda, the avodah of Baal Tshuva, and that's where David HaMelech, that's where Mashiach comes from. So it's a big Indian. So I want to make it clear. This is what I'm trying to point out, that the world of Elohim, it's not a b'diavad. It's not something, again, the way I've been describing it till now is that it's on a lower level. There's no question it is on a lower level, but that lower level is not necessarily something that's a b'diavad. It's not necessarily something which is, no, what are you supposed to do? I have no choice. That's something that Hashem wants us to work with and wants us to deal with. I'm seeing a question right now, just quickly. I mentioned very, very quickly that this is the avodah of Baal Tshuva. The reason why Baal Tshuva is connected with that world of doubt is because, as David HaMelech said, as much tshuva as a person can do, David HaMelech, who's the greatest example of Baal Tshuva, said, Chatasi nekti summit, that all of my sins and all the things that I'm struggling with are constantly in front of my face. I could be doing all the technical details of tshuva. I read through the halachas of tshuva, the Rambam 50 times. I said al-chet 100 million times. I officially say all the words I'm doing tshuva and I regret and all that. But at the end of the day, there's no question that until the Baal Tshuva leaves this world, he's plagued with the doubt of, did I really overcome the issues that I fell into? And those doubts, that's something that David HaMelech was actually proud of. Chatasi negdi sama, that my sins are constantly in front of my eyes. Not to weigh me down and not to hold me back from going further, but there is always that question of doubt. There is always that question, that nagging doubt in the back of the Baal Tshuva's mind is, am I free of that ugliness? And that's something that won't necessarily ever go away. So, and what I'm trying to say is that that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's a level of doubt. There's a certain level of nature that the Baal Tshuva put himself into, that got himself used to a certain lifestyle or a certain issue, And his avodah sometimes in his life is to struggle with that level of doubt, that world of suffix, and to not necessarily to leave that level of suffix, but to close his eyes and to keep on pushing further every day to be a new struggle, and to hope and pray that he's free of that, without ever necessarily knowing it in his lifetime. By David HaMelech himself, we find such a thing, that the only time where it became clear that it was completely clean of the sin of Bathsheba, whatever sin that was on his level, was only after he passed away. Only after he passed away, where there's a whole episode in Chazal of Shlomo Melech being able to bring the ark into the temple only in the merit of David HaMelech. It was only at that episode after David passed away where it became clear to David himself that he was clean of sin. Until then, his entire lifetime, he was plagued by those doubts, and that's what Baal Tshuva has to deal with. And we should all become Baal Tshuva, because we all have issues that we're stuck in, rules of nature, so to speak, that we're stuck in, that we have to get out of. And until a person is completely raised to Yud Kei Vav Kei, there's no question he might be plagued with those levels of doubt. This is something important I wanted to mention from the Ishbitzer, that, again, there's no such thing as V'diavad. Every level that a person is put onto, it doesn't mean that he doesn't do the Ishtav to get out of it. But until he does, or he finds himself unable to raise himself to Yud Kei Vav Kei, that does not mean that his life is a V'diavad at all. It means that Hashem is sending him to struggle with Elokim, to struggle with those doubts, and to persevere and to get through it, and somehow things are happening in that place. Okay, so if there's any other questions?
Yes, there was one other question somebody posted, which was on Eino Milvado. It's hard for me to believe that if you recite this pasuk in times of danger, you would not get harmed. What if God is choosing to end your life in this particular way? Isn't everything that Hashem decides for the best?
I'm sorry, though, I'm having a hard time hearing you. Let me just shut off the air conditioner for a second, and then you'll repeat the question. I just can't hear. Yeah, I'm sorry. Say that again?
So the question is on Enod Milvado. It's hard for me to believe that if you recite this pasuk in times of danger, you would not get harmed. What if God is choosing to end your life in this particular way? Isn't everything Hashem decides for the best?
Yeah, so listen, there's no question that those situations of Enod Milvado, again, we have cases in history where a person has used that. And I'm sure there are probably cases in history where a person used it and maybe it didn't work. Because you're right, when a person's time is up, it's up. There is such a thing. I guess what the Nefesh Chaim was saying was, and again I have to look back to see exactly how he words it, that what he's trying to say is that if you're in a situation of where harm is going to come to you because of the circumstances of this world, then Eino Milvado will be able to make you, circumvent those scenarios. Listen, if a person, at some point after 120, a person's time is up, you could say Eino Milvado all you want, and that's the way it goes. Now, by the way, just on the side, there's something interesting. When a person's, this is an important thing to remember. When a person's time is up, maybe I shouldn't even mention this because it's going to be too complicated for like a minute, but it's because I had to mention. When a person's time is up, there could be actually something detrimental by thinking Eino Milvado. The reason is because the concept of raising oneself up to the level of Yud Kei Vav Kei, of Eino Milvado, in a certain sense disconnects a person from the physical world. There's no question about it. That meditation is disconnecting him from this world. When a person's time is almost up and the neshama is anyway being pulled away from the body, then having that meditation could actually make the death come on. It could actually allow the death to happen instead of it pushing it away. An example of this, by the way, is Rav Kook. Rav Kook, it was famous that towards the end of his life, the last few days and so on, instead of being involved in learning Kabbalah, he threw himself completely in Halacha and Gemara and Halacha. He wouldn't touch any Kabbalah Sefer during the last few days of his life. And the reason is because when he felt his soul leaving his body slowly, that connection between body and soul becoming less and less strong, it was important to him to keep his soul down here, was to throw himself into very practical, physical things. So it's an interesting thing. When a person is being threatened by things of this world, by Elokim, then raising yourself of Eino Milvado, Yud Kei Vav Kei, could help a person. However, when the time is coming for the soul on its own, that it's time for it naturally to be drawn out of the body, then it could be Eino Bovada will actually speed that process up. In which case, the person would want to do like a Rav Kook, throwing himself into practical things. So again, how do you know? It's impossible to know. You do the best you can. Like I said, Rav Kook was able to tell where his soul-body connection was. We're not on that level. We're in the world of doubt, and we have to do the best we can, and that's all we can do. But again, it's a good question. I don't know on particular cases. And right, is this danger coming from Elokim? Is it coming from just it's my time to be up? I don't know.
Okay, I know it's late, but just in case, I just opened up, I unmuted everybody in case there's anybody on the phone call-ins who wanted to ask a question. Is there anyone there? If not, anyone? No? Yossi, I don't want to sidetrack, but I have one question from the beginning. You were talking about this spiritual capacity that gets saved for that if a person doesn't do Hishtadlus to bring that down, it gets saved for him. Is there a concept at all of that maybe it's better for a person not to do Hishtadlus and sort of store that away for the next world rather than wasting it in this world?
No, because, if a person was completely... The answer is really no, because if a person is born, a person is alive, he's alive for a reason, and he has to accomplish certain things. So to allow that potential of fixing the world, of uplifting the world, of serving Hashem in this world, if a person allows that just to go, that's basically committing suicide. And committing suicide is usher according to Allah. Why? What do you mean? You want to connect to Hashem. There's no greater place to connect to Hashem than after a person passes away. The truth is, it's not like that. As we talked about in the Shiur, talking about Tchias Mesim and so on, that's not true at all. The greatest thing that a person can do is to serve Hashem in this physical world. And in order to serve Hashem in a physical world, a person needs to eat, a person needs to have clothing, needs to have a family, needs to be able to function. And in order to function, you need to draw those spiritual energies into this world in physical things. So even Yaakov Avinu, when he davened to Hashem, he said, "Nu v'nasan Hashem li lechem lechel beged lubeish." Hashem, I need parnasa, I need clothing, I need a family. This is what I need in order to function, in order to be the tzaddik that I can become. A person who would neglect that, who would save all that stuff in Olam Haba, and basically commit suicide down here, he's committing a sin. That's not something that Hashem wants. He's being selfish, and he's not even. And truth is, it's not even selfishness. It's just stupid because the level of attachment to Hashem, as we talked about in those shiurim about Olam Haba and Tchias Mesim, according to the Mekubalim, the level of attachment to Hashem that a person can reach dafka in this world is much greater than anything a person can reach after 120. So not only is it selfish, but it's really self-destructive. It's the most productive thing a person can do is to do the best he can in this world, to do all the Shabbos he needs to do in order to survive, in order to function, in order to become who he can become. Now, the next year we'll talk about is the idea of a person who is working for Parnasa and so on, who finds himself in a job that he needs to do in order to make a Parnasa because he's in that world of Hishtadlus. Does that mean that the whole job is really nothing more than just being able to get the paycheck? Or is there something more in Hishtadlus itself? Again, that point will become clear in the next year. We'll talk about this more. Okay.
Okay, Shkoyach. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.